All right, we were talking about Goldberg, and obviously, we're talking about 1999. We talked about the finger poke of doom, but what happens after that is kind of interesting. And I know you're not booking, but I guess are you still technically there with Nash? Nash is the head
Yeah,
booker, right?
yes.
So it immediately starts off. He gets some house show matches against the Giant, which he wins. A house show match against Bigelow, he wins. But then he starts a feud with Scott Hall. What was the issue between these two in real life, not just storyline wise, in real life?
They were dear friends, and Kevin had come to Scott's aid numerous times. Uh, Kevin's had a tough year, but he's doing well right now, and he was Scott's anchor. Without Scott being around Kevin, I think it destroyed him.
What about Goldberg and Hall though here in '99? Because it seemed like something was brewing with him. Did Hall like to pick on him, or what was going on with Hall and Goldberg?
Well, Scott was a ribber, and Bill wasn't used to that, and it caused a rift between them.
What would he do, like rib wise?
You know, these off the cuff remarks Scott could make, and he did it in a way that it got under Bill's skin. And like I said, Bill had gone from the power plant to being on top, so he wasn't used to that.
Do you think Hall had like some justification there for some of the ribbing, or is it just Hall being Hall?
I think it's all being Hall because Scott was a smart guy. He saw what Goldberg was doing and
Do you
doing well.
do you think that they really or he really liked Goldberg or no?
Yeah, I think he did. But I also think that he understood Goldberg had to be defeated soon.
Do you think maybe some of the animosity was that which is this is crazy to even think, but that Hall cost him the match, and Goldberg thinks he still should have been undefeated, kind of thing? Like he thinks Hall had something to do with the planning of the finish of the match.
I can't speak for Scott, but I would assume that Scott saw the business couldn't keep going with Bill never losing.
Now, does Scott? I know obviously he's got his trials and tribulations here, but does he contribute to the booking at all? I know Nash and you were kind of obviously the co and the main booker. Is Hall contributing at all to booking?
Well, he gave Sting the Sting gimmick, the Crow gimmick.
Yep.
Very smart guy. Uh, he just understood that Bill had to be defeated, and it was rightfully so, but not the way they did it, I don't think.
So the cattle prod is kind of the one of the main reasons. Obviously, the cattle prod, then the Nash power bomb is the reason why Goldberg loses the title at Starcade '98. But the cattle prod, aka the stun gun, becomes a part of the storyline. Do you like that at all? Kind of making a little bit of a callback to the how Hall cheated and helped Nash win.
If it was done a different way without the cattle prod, it, uh, we just, I'd rather have seen him lose cleanly like he did, how he got there.
So when they start using the cattle prod really as a storyline, are you okay with that? Or you think like, okay, now it's and like it's almost taking it too far. Like it was kind of a mistake, and now we're just taking it too far using it in the storyline.
Yeah, I think it was not done vindictively. In their head, they were trying to make him Superman. that took the cattle prod and a bunch of other people
Yep.
to stop him. So I don't think it was done vindictively.
So we go to sold out 1999 from the Charleston Civic Center in Charleston, West Virginia. They have a stun gun ladder match. This is 117.99, the first pay per view after Starrcade 98. Man, interesting. Stun gun ladder match. Do you like that
No,
gimmick idea at all?
no,
Is that, I guess, I mean, that's got to be the Nash's idea, right?
I'm not sure on that one. Kevin, I've mentioned this before, was a soldier. He took orders. I go and tell people, look at the difference between Hall and Hulk at the time. I think we cheated the people out of a hell of a match. And it could have been done in a different way. I think that was one of the things that hurt wrestling. But
The finger poke of doom.
yeah, but I don't think that was Kevin's idea.
Yeah, we talked about that before. He's always kind of been a good soldier about it. Maybe even like we were talking about with Goldberg in the Regal match. Regal kind of been maybe a good soldier, not revealing who the agent was, and you were kind of backing that up as well. But yeah, I guess some of these guys are protecting some guys for whatever reason, and not that that's good or bad, but just seems like that's what they're doing a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Do you
because
have
they got a lot of heat from it.
do you have a problem though, like with not revealing the guys, or do you think that's the right way? If the guys don't want to reveal it, they shouldn't reveal.
I think if Goldberg wanted to reveal it, he could have revealed it. Maybe he had second thoughts on it. And Regal, this is obviously carried a scar with Regal. Uh, I don't know what else to tell you about it, but
How about Nash with the finger poke though? How come he keeps that such a kind of close to the vest?
because him and Hulk are friends, and you got to remember, Hulk had complete control.
So when you're looking at a stun gun ladder match, I know obviously Hall is kind of the one of the inventors of the ladder match, if you will. He kind of made the ladder match kind of is what it is. If you think about it, WrestleMania 10, I know he didn't innovate it, but he made it famous. So him being in the match, I have no problem with. But the fact that Goldberg's in a ladder match, that's I don't know, that's just and not that he's like an injury prone guy per se, but he's dealing with some injuries. He just doesn't seem like a ladder match type of bumper. You know what I mean? Like that type of guy.
Exactly, exactly. Uh, I think they were trying to right the wrong they made, which made it more difficult.
I don't know. I was always just curious. I'm like, man, how is this match going to turn out? And I was kind of shocked. I mean, this is obviously a testament to how good Scott Hall is. But the stun gun ladder match, Goldberg gets the win. Match goes 17 minutes 44 seconds. So probably one of Goldberg's longest matches ever. Might be his longest match ever. I'll have to double check, but it's got to be up there at least. The match is actually really good. It's like shockingly. So Hall is, Scott Hall is Hall. He's amazing.
Yes, he is. Scott was one of the greatest workers of all times.
Where would you kind of rank him? I know we're saying one of the greatest of all times, but would you put him up there like top 10, top 20?
As a worker,
Yeah.
yeah,
Top 10?
top 10.
Wow, nice. He could, and I've noticed this, which is kind of good. It could be good and bad, but kind of funny. If he wants to have a good match with you, he'll make you look like $1,000,000. When he doesn't want to have a good match with you, he could literally make you look like the shit. And I think that's what, I know going completely off topic here, but I think that's what Shane Douglas's problem was with him. You know what I mean? He kind
Yeah,
of was just like, I'm gonna not make this guy look like $1,000,000. You know what I mean?
yeah. And you got to realize that's Shane's story.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's I don't I may be completely off on this, but I don't see Scott Hall doing this on purpose. Maybe there was some animosity there, and he didn't give 100%, but even 50% of Scott Hall is better than most guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's one of the greats. So it's funny to think, like, oh my God, Goldberg. I know it's the main event of the pay per view. It's obviously not for the title because Hogan's the champion again because of the finger poke. But it's like almost like, okay, what is the idea here with Goldberg? Are we building him back up, or are we just keeping him away from the title? What's the idea here? Because he's feuding with Hall. It's the main event of a secondary pay per view still, and it's a good match, great match, all things considered. But what's going on? Like, what's the booking here?
I think it was a direction from Hulk. He wanted the belt. I think his contract was coming due, and he wanted to protect himself.
So would this be a case of like, okay, build this guy back up to getting the title shot? Is that
Yeah,
kind of the idea?
I think so. Yeah.
Do you like that booking pattern? Because it's almost like he's not starting from the bottom, but you got to take off, the hired guns here before you get the lead assassin, if you will.
And they do that in MMA, they do it boxing all the time. A guy loses his title, he drops down to maybe fifth on the list of top 10.
Very true. I kind of, in a way, I like it because it's like, okay, he maybe doesn't need to be the champion. He just had the undefeated streak. He was just world champion. Maybe not. Let's have him do something else. And having a feud with Scott Hall, I mean, still, you're in the main event, so that's pretty good. And not only are you feuding with Hall, you're actually feuding with Bam Bam Bigelow at the same time. So you got two feuds going at once. Then you throw in the fact that he wants revenge on Nash. He's got three feuds going at once without even being close to the world title picture, but still being in the main event, right?
Yeah, and still drawing money.
What do you think about Bam Bam coming in at this point?
I always liked Bam Bam Bigelow. He was never a problem. He did whatever you asked of him, and he was an incredible big man.
So Bam Bam, Goldberg, and Scott Hall have a no contest on Monday Nitro 175, 118.99, which is the day after sold out. That three-way dance goes to a no contest. But it is interesting to note that obviously that's going to continue the feud, right?
Right.
Do you like that on Nitro main event having a no finish? Because sometimes that got a little old.
Uh, you know how I always talk about patents?
Yeah.
We fell into a patent. It was, let's get out of here with everybody looking good.
Yes, that's kind of that's definitely what it seems like. It's like, okay, nobody lost, nobody won, everybody looks kind of good or looks the same, but it didn't really build anybody. You know what I mean? It didn't really do anything. It's almost like, blue balls here. We got a lot of blue balls going on.
Yeah, and I also think that they were reevaluating Bill's attitude.
Really? Like Bischoff?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people had come to Eric and said, "Hey, you can't go undefeated all the time."
Do you think that he had an attitude problem?
No, I think he was inexperienced.
Do you think that he kept himself away from others, or did he like party with the guys, hang out with the guys?
He didn't party with a bunch of guys, but he did party with some guys.
So he wasn't necessarily like to himself all the time. I mean, he
No,
was okay. He
no,
wasn't like an ultimate warrior, if you will, because I always hear stories about warrior. He had his own locker room. He kind of stayed to himself.
no. Bill was far from that.
So Goldberg then beat Scott Norton on the following Nitro in 5 minutes 30 seconds from Dallas, Texas. So, I mean, that's a nice little win, right? I mean, obviously
Yeah,
Norton's a pretty big name, pretty accomplished star.
yeah. I mean, he was huge in Japan. I had to be very careful what I did with him on TV. It didn't hurt him to lose to Goldberg. It'd be like someone over there losing to Muda. It
Right.
didn't hurt them.
Yep. Then let's fast forward to the pay-per-view, Super Bowl 9, which was 221.99 from Oakland, California. Goldberg defeats Bam Bam Bigelow in about 12 minutes. So, I don't know. I felt like the match was maybe a little unheralded by the sheets, but it was actually a pretty good match, pretty hard hitting match. Kind of what you'd expect from these two guys. Any thought here of maybe putting Bammer over Goldberg, or no? This is where you're building Goldberg back up. He's not taking losses right now.
He's not going to take a loss now, no. And Bam Bam was the guy to get Bill back over and on track.
Is that why he was brought in and when he was?
I believe that had something to do with it. Yeah.
When you look at the house shows, he's beating Nash and Bam Bam on the house shows too. So it's not like he's not still going over everywhere. I mean, he's going over everybody still, even after losing the losing streak. So it's not like oh, poor Goldberg here. You know what I mean? It's just like he's still kind of he's still doing well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the idea.
So then he defeats Scott Steiner by a DQ on Nitro. Then him and Rick Steiner on a 3-199 Nitro defeated Bagwell and Steiner. He fights Ric Flair to a no contest on the 3-899 edition of Nitro. Then on a 315 edition of Nitro, Hogan and Nash fought Flair and Goldberg to a no contest in about 10 minutes. So I mean, he's doing some good stuff here. There's around this time here that he'll kind of start maybe a little bit of a mini feud with Bret Hart. It seems like. Remember when Bret Hart put
Yeah.
the plate in his stomach? I know we talked about this before, but he does that. So, but then Bret quits. So then that doesn't become anything. So it's almost like you're building all these different feuds for Goldberg. And like maybe in hopes, is it in hopes to get another shot at Hogan? I mean, he's even in a tag team match against Hogan here.
Yeah, of course it was.
How come it doesn't happen?
Politics.
Really?
Politics, yeah.
So then we have him defeating Ming a few times at some house shows, and then defeating Hack, your buddy Hack, on a Monday Nitro on 322.99. So it seems like things are going well here. Obviously, the Bret Hart thing might be a little bit of a hiccup because Bret knocks him out, but then also Goldberg doesn't get to capitalize because Bret doesn't come back for many months. I mean, Owen Hart dies in between too, so obviously there's a reason for that, and Bret was a little bit injured too. So it was one of the things where that's just a small hiccup, right? I mean, he's just going to get over that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, excuse me. So then he's going to defeat Ming on a bunch of house shows, Hugh Morris on a house show, Bam Bam Bigelow again on a house show. He's going to be in a 4-way match on Monday Nitro for the heavyweight title, Flair, DDP, Goldberg, and Hogan. And it goes to a no contest. So Flair retains his world title there. Another thing here, right? I mean, there's a world title match. You guys are going head to head against Monday Night Raw, and no contest in the title for the main event. Is that a misstep or no?
I believe so.
So then we have the Goldberg rematch versus Kevin Nash. 4-11.99 Spring Stampede. So he's beaten Hall, he's beaten Bigelow, the two guys that cost him the match. Now he gets the match against the guy he lost to. All makes sense booking wise so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
He defeats Nash in 8 minutes. The good, the bad, the showdown. Spring Stampede 1999 from the Tacoma Dome, Tacoma, Washington. Big win here for Goldberg. Is that good enough? Are you happy for him to get his win back here, or is that doesn't really matter?
Well, we were going a different way, and we had to build them up in a different way. So He had lost the undefeated streak, but now we're on a rebuild for Bill because we know the numbers he drew.
Right. It seems like though booking wise, like that makes perfect sense. Like, okay, he beat Hall. Hall cost him. Bigelow cost him. He interfered in that match too. Nash is the guy that actually beat him. Okay, so you know what I mean. So it's leading in that direction. But then his next, challenge for the world title is really when DDP is the world champion. So it's not. It's interesting because Hogan has lost the title to Flair. DDP's the champ. What happened, like in the influx, like with Hogan and him? What was going on here with the world title situation? Because Flair wins it from Hogan, the DDP wins it from Flair.
Yeah, this was when they were trying to make Page and give him a shot because he had worked so hard for it.
It just seems like wow, maybe Goldberg Hogan is still being maybe built up for later on, or is that just off the table at this point?
No, it's not off the table. I think if you put those two names against one another on a poster, you're going to draw.
So of course, DDP does win the world title in that four-way at the same event where Goldberg in the co-main event defeated Nash. DDP defeated Hogan, Flair, and Sting to win the title in a four-way. Obviously, Flair beat Hogan in the pay-per-view before that to win the title. So interesting little like dynamic stuff going on too here because Hogan is kind of more turning face at this point too. So it was like, wow, not that Goldberg necessarily needs his revenge on Hogan because Hogan does the finger point of doom, and they obviously they screw Goldberg after that. It's kind of more of Nash screwing him. But do you think that's the right direction for Hogan at this point? He's going to turn babyface while Goldberg is kind of still, still your top dog, still your top babyface.
I think Hulk thought at this time it was time for him to turn back babyface
Did you
because
like,
he was getting a lot of cheers.
which was a change obviously from '95 and
Right,
'96? Yeah.
right,
Did you
right.
like that him babyface?
Well, the people wanted it, and sometimes you have to give them what they want.
Ooh, I heard a few people say that before. Yes. Um, Slamboree 99 is Goldberg versus Sting in a pretty good match there. Match goes 8 minutes and 15 seconds from the TWA Dome in St. Louis. It actually goes to a no contest. So interesting, right? I mean, I guess you're kind of keeping both guys strong in
Yeah,
essence.
yeah, we got to a point where we had to make everybody strong at this time, and it was like we're trying to repatch the hole in the hull of the boat.
So Hogan turns babyface. Him, Goldberg, and Sting defeated Nash, Rick Steiner, and Sid Vicious on the Monday Nitro in August 8-9, 1999. The week after would be Road Wild 1999, where Goldberg continues his feud with Rick Steiner and gets a win over Rick Steiner in 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Then he squashes Barry Windham in 43 seconds. Unbelievable to think about that. I know it's 1999, but unbelievable to think about that. 43-second loss for Windham to Goldberg there. Then on Monday Nitro 206 from 8:30 1999 in Uniondale, New York, Long Island, Goldberg and Hulk Hogan defeated the Jersey Triad, Bigelow, Canyon, and Page in 5 minutes, 2-on-3. Beat him in 5 minutes. Do you like Goldberg and Hogan kind of sharing the spotlight as the top baby faces?
It's Batman and Superman together, right?
Yep. Could be, yeah. And they really are kind of a super team because then in a 2-on-3 handicap steel cage match on Nitro the following week, Goldberg and Hogan defeated DDP, Rick Steiner, and Sid Vicious in 5 minutes. So it's like, man, these two are like the two greatest, baby faces alive here. They're destroying the big heels of the time, Sid,
Right,
Steiner, and DDP.
right. It was to get Bill back up and running and get the rub from Hogan.
Goldberg then defeats DDP in 9 minutes at Fall Brawl 99, which of course was Sting and Hogan, Brawl for it all. 9-12-99. Sting, of course, turns heel at the end there. Goldberg defeating DDP. I guess no surprise there, but they did have a pretty good match. Goldberg would get wins over Brian Knobbs and Hugh Morris and Scott Norton, Sid Vicious on the house shows. it's one of those things where he's not taking any losses since the streak loss. Do you like that as well?
Yes, yes,
Is that important?
yes. How does a guy look what happened to Mike Tyson after he got beat by Buster Douglas? He almost became irrelevant, and then he started to lose to Kevin McBride, a guy that shouldn't even been in the ring with him.
Oh, yeah, God, yeah, yep.
So didn't want that to happen to Bill.
And I know we've obviously talked about. That's why I'm kind of browsing over some of the pay per view matches. We've talked about pretty much each and every one of these pay per views for a whole episode. Just check the archives, obviously, for those. So Havoc '99 comes around, and hey, there's a new booker. Vince Russo is now booking. Where are you? That now that Russo is there and Nash is no longer booking and Russo is in. Where are you?
I went home.
So
I
Russo.
I'd show up for finishes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So Russo basically almost not. I don't would say doesn't know what to do with Goldberg, but you kind of had Goldberg's best prime here, and I don't know if necessarily you could follow it. You know what I mean? Like, can really another
yeah,
Booker, like somebody trying to copy and top the NWO? It's not going to happen. Somebody trying to top Goldberg and is that streak, not going to happen. So he almost tried to do like another streak again. He almost tries to copy it. Big mistake, right? Booking wise,
yeah. I think so.
don't do that, right? I mean, if you're a Booker, don't copy somebody else.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to knock and say you don't do it, but you might have should have done it in a different way.
Right.
Make Bill the baby face where he had to overcome obstacles.
So that Havoc in '99, he ends up having a feud with Sid. He wins by referee's decision in 7 minutes. He actually wins the United States title. Then at the end of the night, at the end of Havoc, Sting makes a challenge basically for the world title because Hogan had laid down earlier and Sting just put his foot on him and pinned him. We've seen that obviously before. Bash at the Beach '99 just reversed with him and Jeff Jarrett. Just, I don't want to. We've got into that before. Just horrible, but it's weird. Goldberg at the end of the night, Sting, who's technically not champion because he was stripped by J.J. Dillon, puts up the title. Goldberg beats Sting at the end of the night. We think he's champion, but he's not really champion. Very, very confusing. It's even confusing to me, who knows it by heart and watched it a million times. It just didn't make sense. They were basically pretending Goldberg's double champion, even though Sting was kind of stripped of the title for beating up referees earlier in the night.
Right, right.
So confusing stuff here, but Goldberg he's still dominant. You like him as United States champion though? Isn't he past that at this point?
I think he's past it at this point. Yes.
Wasn't particularly. I just thought like that's kind of like a wrong direction for it. You know what I mean? Just didn't make sense. Um, Bret Hart actually ends up defeating Goldberg in a title tournament match. So Bill Goldberg loses. Basically, it's the opening round for the world title tournament. It's a 32-man tournament. Bret Hart defeats Goldberg in the first round, obviously cheating and chicanery involved, and Bret Hart pretends he knows nothing about it, and Bret beats him in 8 minutes. Goldberg also loses the U.S. title at that point. A lot of stuff going on here, but do you like Goldberg taking a loss to Bret Hart in a title tournament match? A 32-man tournament. The first round is Goldberg and Bret. Shouldn't that be the finals?
I think so.
This tournament was crazy.
Yeah.
I won't even get into the whole thing, but it was booked a low. To me, just as a fan, I was shocked. I'm like, wow, that's the first round match, and wow, Bret just beat Goldberg. I know that the outsiders cheat and everything else, but it just came off like confusing. Like, wow, that's Goldberg's first loss since last year.
Yeah.
Then they have a Texas Tornado ladder match the next week, or excuse me, in 2 weeks for the U.S. title. Scott Hall wins that one. Also involved Bret Hart, Goldberg, who was the champ. Bret Hart, who was the United States champion, Goldberg, and Sid Vicious. The match was only 5 minutes, but Scott Hall is now a U.S. champion, which then kind of just continues on. Goldberg, he's not only feuding with kind of Hall, Nash, and Bret, he's now also feuding with Sid, of course, too. and Goldberg defeats Sid by referee's decision, Mayhem 1999 pay-per-view. We've talked about that before as well. That almost made Goldberg look like a heel, the way he beat Sid into submission and just like didn't care, and Sid's bleeding. It was almost turning Goldberg heel, and I don't think the fans wanted that.
Well, that's my opinion and your opinion, but obviously not the guy that's pulling the strings.
Goldberg and Bret Hart will win the tag titles over Gerald and Patrick, aka the Creative Control. Obviously, it's the Harris brothers, but it's a make fun of Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson. Then the following week, we have Nash and Hall defeating Goldberg and Bret Hart to win the tag team titles. So Goldberg, shockingly, is a tag team champion winner with Bret Hart. A lot of weird stuff going on. He's a United States champion, then he loses that. He's a tag team champion, loses that. Weird booking for Goldberg, to me anyway. I don't know if he needs belts like that.
I'm not sure that he does either.
Would you have booked him as a tag team champ?
No.
Confusing stuff here. Then eventually the big Starrcade main event, Starrcade 99 from the MCI Center in Washington, of course, District of Columbia, Washington, 12/19/1999. Bret Hart defeated Goldberg in 12 minutes, 30 seconds. This was, of course, by a Roddy Piper Montreal screw job. I don't know if you've ever seen this. I know we talked about it in an episode before, but interesting here. They did a Montreal screw job. And kind of it shows you that the booker who's writing it made Piper do it, and it was obviously a copy of the Montreal Screwjob, but it just didn't work. And obviously, this is the match that Bret Hart says ended his career.
Well, it didn't work.
All the way around, disaster
all the way around.
Man, just not good at all. And as we enter into 1999, or excuse me, into 2000, the end of 1999, Bret Hart defeats Goldberg again to win the quote-unquote vacant title, even though it's not vacant. Bret pretended it was vacant to pretend he wasn't in this new NWO that they were putting together, and he defeats Goldberg again with the help of Jeff Jarrett, Hall, and Nash, and they create a new NWO. You like this?
No.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think the NWO should have been the four guys I mentioned: Bach, Hogan, Hall, and Nash.
Bret Hart and Jarrett, no offense, I love those guys, but they don't scream NWO to me.
I love them too, but there's only four guys that are the NWO in my head.
So then, of course, Goldberg is out for 6 months. He gets injured, as you know, had a little bit of problem with Hall, smashes the limo. Remember, he rips his arm completely open because the pipe, I guess, that was in there fell out, and he didn't care. He just went with it anyway. Did you ever see this? Were you ever? I mean, then you just see the blood just dripping from his arm as his arm is completely torn apart.
I was there when it happened.
Oh, you were there. Wow. What did you think? That was gross.
I thought Bill didn't use the best of his brain power.
Did you ever get so mad at somebody that you punched a car door window until your arm was bleeding?
No.
What was he thinking about? Just maybe not thinking?
I would say that would be the closest thing I can say that you're right. That would be the closest thing. He wasn't thinking. He was enraged.
He comes back during the Bischoff Russo era, 6/5/2000. He defeats Tank Abbott in 2 minutes from Atlanta, Georgia. His big return was, of course, that was the Phillips Arena. Made a big return there. He fights Nash the following week to a no contest, and he beats Horace Hogan the following week in about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. He's a part of a four-way title match on Nitro between Jeff Jarrett, Nash, and Steiner, but Jeff Jarrett retains his title there. He defeats Jim Duggan in a match. Nash ends up winning a battle royal on a Nitro that he's a part of. But then it's kind of where it gets a little tricky, because really before that, really at the Great American Bash, they were promising this huge change, and they had Goldberg turn heel, beat up Nash, and help Jarrett retain the title. Do you like Goldberg turning heel?
No. It was like when Steve Austin turned heel.
Not good.
No.
What the heck were they thinking? Like, I know Russo had said, like, oh, well, we didn't think we could do anything more with Goldberg as babyface. He's done it all. Is that necessarily true? Can't believe
Bruno
that.
Bruno was the champion for 7.5 years, right?
Yes.
There it is.
It felt like, wow, they were really trying, too hard there for the heel turn. And the crowd didn't really buy him as a heel. You know what I mean? Like, they tried their damnedest. They were not buying him as a heel. They didn't want him as a heel at all. And you could tell he didn't want himself to be a heel. He didn't like it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to give the people what they want, maybe not when they want, but you have to give them what they came to see eventually.
Bash of the Beach 2000, we obviously remember for the Hogan, Jarrett, Booker T, all that, and Russo and all that nonsense. But Goldberg defeats Kevin Nash again, 5 minutes, 30 seconds from Daytona Beach, Florida. Bash of the Beach 2000 was 7-9, 2000. Interesting thing about this match, it was a Scott Hall contract match. If Nash won, he gets to bring Hall back. If Goldberg wins, he gets to rip up the contract and Hall is gone for good. You like this? This was like a legit thing. Hall was really gone. Do you like this? I mean, this is kind of and this is, by the way, the reason why Scott Hall hated Russo.
Uh, it was opening up a door that didn't need to be opened.
Man, it felt like some cheap shots were taken at Hall. I remember when Jeff Jarrett and Booker T had a San Francisco 49er match, one of the weapons in the 49er boxes was a picture of Scott Hall in a frame. I was like, I don't know, it was like little shots at Hall for no reason. He didn't even work there anymore. He was gone.
Yeah, I can't understand that one.
Looking at it, you want it to be a tease that he's going to return. He wasn't returning.
Right.
So it comes off bad. So, like, I guess that's another way to try to get Goldberg booed, but it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
New Blood Rising, which was a new pay-per-view instead of Road Wild, 8/13/2000, Vancouver, British Columbia, Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Number one contendership match for the world title. Nash defeats Goldberg and Scott Steiner in 11 minutes. I know we talked about this before, but just to refresh your memory, Goldberg actually walked out of this match and says he's not following the script. So Nash pinned Steiner for the win.
Not the way to do business.
Then Goldberg starts a feud with the writer, Vince Russo, because he says he's not following the script anymore. Russo ends up at one point coming out in a Pope mobile because he says he's afraid of Goldberg. Goldberg's going to kill him and all this other stuff. And Goldberg basically says, I am going to kill you. So again, for the third time, they do a streak thing where Russo goes, you have to beat your original streak. You have to go 174-0 before I'll give you another title shot. So they're going to start the streak over again, like start that feud over. Do you like that?
No. Don't follow yourself.
I didn't like that at all. I kind of fast forwarded just a little bit before that, though. Fall Brawl 2000, 9/17/2000. Scott Steiner defeated Goldberg in 14 minutes from Buffalo, New York. I say this is Goldberg's best match. This match is awesome. I know Russo cheats in the match and might ruin a little bit or something, but it's an awesome match. They literally just kill each other and beat the shit out of each other. It's like two monsters of the Midway just destroying each other. It's a great match. Steiner shockingly gets the win too, which then leads to the Russo Goldberg confrontation and the feud.
Right. Well, I don't understand why it was put there, but it was put there.
Don't you think that, like, you have a guy like Steiner who's kind of Goldberg's equal to me in every sense? They look, and like you always say, the poster, of course, they
Right.
look like $1 million in the poster. Wouldn't you make that the Goldberg feud instead of him kind of feuding with Russo, the Booker?
I would think so.
So, of course, then Goldberg goes on a pretty big winning streak, of course, defeating Elix Skipper, David Flair, Big Vito, Johnny the Bull, Chuck Palumbo, Sean Stasiak, Ming, the Harris brothers 1-on-2. At Halloween Havoc 2000, he defeated Chronic, Brian Adams, and Brian Clark, 2-on-1, of course, in a handicap match there in about 4 minutes. Beat Stasiak again. defeated Bam Bigelow and Lex Luger. Then he starts a feud with Lex Luger and defeats Luger at both the Mayhem and the Starrcade 2000 pay-per-view before we get to finally his last match, which is 1/14/2001 WCW Sin from the Conseco Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana. Totally Buff Bagwell, and Lex Luger defeated Goldberg and Dwayne Bruce, a.k.a. his trainer from the WCW Power Plant, a.k.a. the Sarge, in 11 minutes, 30 seconds. What do you think? That's the end of Goldberg and WCW because technically, like Russo had made the point, if you lose the streak, your career is over.
Right.
He lost in the tag match, Totally Buff, so his career is over.
Right.
Are you shocked that's the ending? That's the end of the streak there? I know Russo isn't the booker at this point, but are you shocked that's the end?
Absolutely.
Is that terrible or what? Imagine saying to somebody, "Oh, who was WWE's best guy?" And then somebody says Goldberg. Then you say, "What was his last match?" You'd be like, "I don't know. He probably killed somebody." Nope, he lost to Totally Buff at WCW Sin. Right? Does that make sense?
Not to me.
I know Bischoff had an idea to bring him back, and they were gonna restart the thing, but and I know technically Bischoff not booking here. It's really Johnny Ace's booking, but it felt like they were almost like trying to get rid of all the stars at this point. It just felt weird. I know they were supposedly going to bring him back for the Big Bang and they're going to restart WCW, but it just felt like wow, what a whimper to end Goldberg's run here in 2001.
I think you're 100% correct.
Do you like that, or do you hate that Goldberg wasn't a part of the last Nitro?
Not really, because he didn't go across for a long time.
Yeah, jump ship, and basically 2 years later, 2003. Basically, that's when he jumps, and he only goes for a year at that point. Obviously, much later, he comes back and he stays for about 4 or 5 years, much past when people thought he would return when it was 2017 era Goldberg. But just an interesting way to kind of end it in WCW for Goldberg, to me anyway. Crazy.
Yeah, to me and to the fans too, I believe.
Do you think that booking, like let's say if you were booking, could you have saved some of this stuff, like, or would you have done it differently here?
I don't know if I could have saved it, but I would have done it a different way.
So Goldberg,
he carried us for a long time, along with the other guys.
So Goldberg goes from basically being the number one star in the company, the number one draw, the big guy, the undefeated streak, to kind of just being, I don't know, he just felt like maybe almost like another guy in the roster. Is that kind of like a total, not slap in the face, but is that just a total like, man, not you, but like, man, we missed the boat on booking him better here?
Yeah, I think they knew they missed the boat.
When you look at him and that booking, do you think like, man, this guy is pure money? You know what I mean? Not that you can't screw it up, because obviously anybody can screw up anything, but it's one of those things where, I mean, this guy's easy money, no?
He was easy money, wasn't he? They cheered and cheered and cheered, Bill.
When I look at it, I just think like, wow, from 97 or, September 97 to December of 1998 was like, wow, what a run, the streak, just unbelievably awesome. And then after that, it's like, okay, I know he got hurt for a little bit, but then it's like, man, some of the booking wasn't great. I kind of liked I did like the Hall match. I liked the Bigelow match. I liked the Nash match. It seemed to be going in the right direction. Then boom, all of a sudden, I don't know, it just completely kind of hits a wall, and it could be the booking change there, and maybe they didn't have the same affection for Goldberg as you and Bischoff, but it just felt like, man, they missed the mark with Goldberg.
Oh, I believe that too.
What do you think of the legacy of Goldberg?
He was one of the most biggest draws in the history of wrestling business, and he did a remarkable job coming from the power plant to going on top almost immediately.
All right, so let's hit the plugs. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out the website, tmptempire.com. Kevin, what do you got going on?
Well, you know that book, Old School, Ring
Yeah.
Squared?
Yep.
It's starting to take off. So if people want to read about, it's almost going back in time into a time capsule where you see what's happening now to the wrestling business. It's very enjoyable. So if I can say without any reservations, it's one of the best wrestling books I've ever read.
Nice. Love it. Get yourself some old school for sure. Check it out on Amazon, right?
Right,
Easy way to
right.
get it.
Yeah, Amazon.
All right. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next time. Have a good one, folks.